Hey everybody, thanks again for joining us here on the Gear Room. Today we have another interview that I'm really excited about. A good friend of mine, I've known him for a little bit now, and fantastic guitarist and musician overall. I'm sitting down with the always awesome Adam Truitt.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Hey, thanks for being here.
It's an honor.
To my living room today.
Yeah.
Since we're in Washington and the sun is shining, it's hot, even though it's like 30 degrees out. So
correct.
Our
That
upstairs.
makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, we're just gonna chat today, get to know you a little bit. Style of music you play, like what inspires you, how you got playing, all that.
Yeah.
So why don't you just start by kind of telling us all your name, like your age, like who you play with, where you play.
Yeah. My name is Adam Truitt, so I play mainly just the style that I play is kind of praise and worship genre, and I realize it actually kind of looks different, really, where you go. From church to church. Sometimes I'll get asked to play different services, different churches with different styles of bands. One of the primary people that I do play with right now is Represent Band, also Represent Worship, and out of Everett, Washington, through a conference called Represent that we hold every year, just kind of in February. 2 years ago, it was my first opportunity to play on their album that they released, and that was really fun. And just a season where I got to just kind of develop like what my voice sounds like, I guess, sonically, and writing parts for the first time, which is something new that I got to do, because typically with praise and worship, the genre, just kind of in general, you end up learning a lot of parts for other songs and other people, specifically some of the people like Bethel or Hillsong that actually write songs for the church. So they asked me to join that band to do the same thing, write songs for the church.
That's awesome.
And it's been very fun, and it's just kind of cool. You get to redefine kind of. It's kind of interesting when you get asked to play on a worship album that contains corporate worship songs that people sing to God, right? Like it's you get to kind of define what that sounds like sonically, right? So for so long, like I've always seen people in the praise and worship scene that have kind of defined the sound of what we hear in praise and worship contemporary music today, like James Duke and Pope and these Bethel and Hillsong and mainstream guys. So, not to say that I'm defining anything for the genre, but like also being able to contribute to that genre, and even just a small way, was just a really first thing for me. So that's who I'm playing with now.
People who are hearing their recordings, I mean, you're influencing them, and
for sure,
it's a younger generation who you're playing for at the church and everything like that coming through, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually been something that like has really been almost kind of like an urgent thing for me to be considering, I think, in this season of life too. It's just like younger people look up to older musicians, right? When I was in high school, there were people kind of in our circle, right? Like the Gasparettis, who were kind of like in our scene, were people that I looked up to musically, and also just kind of that scene, and I wanted to be like them. And now coming to a place also where I'm like starting to do some of the things they were doing, and also being very close friends with those people. I know that, I don't think it's an arrogant thing to say at all that there's also people that probably do look up to me, right? And so like I've had a lot of really cool interactions with some younger guitar players through social media and through some of the conferences and camps and services that I've played, to where you do have influence, and I think there's almost an urgency to really kind of watch the things you say and watch the things you do and play.
Now,
but yeah,
as far as playing, do you find yourself like trying to write an even better part because like maybe you've given lessons to a kid, or he's come up to you and been like, man, love that guitar, like does that inspire you to like,
sure.
Oh, I'm gonna write a cooler part, like I'm gonna make this one challenging so this kid can't play it?
That's actually interesting. Something I've really had to consider too, because like I won't really ever think of myself as better than another guitar player. And here's the thing too, like a lot of the people that I've looked up to who do define the sound for worship and write the parts for the songs that we play, they are like years better than me. I wouldn't consider myself anywhere near pro level, but they are. But also at the same time, I would consider myself in a different skill set than these younger people that I would like teach and like hang out with and train. But I think better part is subjective. And for me, like I said, I play with a lot of different people in a lot of different contexts. I think when you look at worship, one thing that'll happen is that you'll get thrown into a band where they tell you, all right, everybody learn your parts, right? And it basically just means, all right, everybody learn the chords, and then guitar player takes everything else that's like, pew, pew, pew.
It's like a hired gun kind of situation then, when it comes to that. Like,
right. Yeah.
Is that like what you're kind of talking about?
I guess so. I mean, and also just kind of like, I think just necessarily doesn't mean I'm going to write a better part. But I think it means that I'm going to fit the situation and adapt to the culture and adapt to the atmosphere, adapt to the band context, adapt to the room. And I think it looks different than playing like a music venue, but you're also playing in churches, right? Where it's a lot different. A
lot of bands are playing through churches nowadays. I mean,
for sure.
Churches are music venues.
For sure. And they're definitely becoming more higher caliber music venues these days too. I think
you're playing in a lot of different places though. And
sure.
You're playing with like a handful of different churches here and there, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had an opportunity to play for a lot of different places. Yeah, I mean, I played for like small churches, like and led worship. I lead worship too, and I oversee a ministry where I lead worship in my church. But yeah, anywhere from like even like 15 to 20 people, and I know there's even been up to thousands. And so it's been all over the spectrum, and I think you kind of have to learn how to adapt a little bit to just like, all right, what works for this style and these people and this culture, you know? So.
Yeah. Now, I'll say, for me, like, I've played to, like, 400 people, 400 plus.
Yeah.
But definitely under the 5.
Sure.
I mean, you say thousands. What was it like your first time, like, stepping into a room that had, 1,000 plus people in it?
Yeah.
Like, what was that like?
It's kind of funny, because the last thing that I played at was, not the last thing I played at, but the biggest last thing that I played at was our Represent conference, I think last year, and that was about 5,000-ish people. And honestly, bro, I mean, you hear people kind of say sometimes that like, oh, it's stage fright and everything, but I think I get more nervous for like smaller crowds, specifically people that are like my peers, right? Okay. So like at my church, say I'm like leading worship for like, our young adult group, or, our high school students, or even just our church family. I know the insecurity mode kind of goes on a lot more into something like that, to where if I'm like playing, I don't know all 5,000 people, right? And it's just also too, there's 2 guitar players usually, and the worship leader's doing his leading thing. And I think ultimately my role as a guitar player in any kind of band setting or worship setting or anything is really just to come behind and make the lead person sound better, right? And to help them do their job better. So I think if there's any moment where I'm distracting, you're trying to pop out to be the star of the show, I think that's maybe not right. It doesn't mean that I don't have solos, doesn't mean I don't have lead lines in that, but if it's not contributing to make everything else sound better. I mean, all I have to say though, like I don't think I get nervous with more people, but it's definitely a thrill, man. Like it's really cool, and I love doing that, and yeah.
So let's jump back a little bit. When did you start playing guitar, and who inspired you, or what did you? Was it an album? Was it a friend, or your parents, or? Right.
In high school, well, I started. I took my first like guitar lesson at a summer camp. It was like a Christian summer camp. It was really cheesy, like worship was really bad, but it was still fun. And I think that's when I picked up like a classical old like rusty guitar that they had in like their closet or something. And then like their worship leader guy like showed me a couple chords, and I was just like super stoked. And then the next year, of course, later, I think I was in like maybe like early middle school, later like elementary. And my parents ended up getting me like one of those like first act style like Starcaster kind of guitars from like Costco, because of the practice amp and the picks and stuff and the tuner. So I started doing that, and I had that like acoustic guitar like all through high school, right? And kind of in high school, I kind of got into like the emo music that was kind of in. Like my favorite band, still one of my favorite bands, was Death Cab for Cutie. So I was a big like Ben Gibbard fan, right? So like I learned a lot of the picking percussive stuff that he did in his solo work, and I like to learn other people's songs, right? So that was a big thing that I did. And I was also that guy in high school, that weird like dude that wore the fake glasses, like with his skinny jeans before they were cool, but I carried the guitar, like that like man, that guy's like a real tool, like carrying his guitar around much. But so I did that, and then I ended up getting involved with youth group, where Sean Gasparetti actually was my youth pastor, and he also led worship as well. And I got up there with my first act, like acoustic guitar. I remember we were playing like a song. He was acoustic, and I was the second acoustic. I think I had like a lead line to one of the songs or something, and he's like, "Dude, you got the lead line, man."
Nice.
And I probably thought I was better than I was, and that moment probably really sucked because I think I had like a Dean Markley pickup in there or something. Yeah.
So, that's the second time you've mentioned the Gasparettis.
Yeah.
So they've been a big inspiration would
for
you say
sure.
in your playing style as well? Like,
Yeah, I don't know about playing style, but I know I've learned a lot from them. I mean, Sean, for sure, I haven't really heard much of his playing style until he played on like one of our worship pastors' albums. Okay. And that also really inspired me because it was kind of a style that I was already kind of getting into when I was getting into electric guitar. But they've also been a big inspiration in regards to just like encouraging and team building and leading teams and leading bands. Yeah. Even Stephen Gasparetti is a good friend of mine. He's an incredible songwriter. He's actually has a GoFundMe up for an album right now that he's producing with Gabriel Wilson. And just a little shameless plug for my buddy Stephen. But yeah, they've been a big inspiration to me just because I feel like when you're a good musician and a lot of people respect you, there's a lot of room just to be like a pretentious, like kind of snob. And I think I see it definitely the same way in church culture, and the Gasparettis just aren't that. So they're kind of like, they've set a really good example of what it looks like to, model humility. And how you interact with people, because I think music just kind of comes down to people in the big picture. Because when you lose the factor of people, it's just, you're kind of making noise because no one can hear what you have to say. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I think we can all agree.
Yeah.
Here of like music, no matter what language you speak, it's something you can
transcends,
understand.
man. Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's awesome. So, speaking of style, and specifically like in the church, like I think of you remember the old youth pastor style, like where he's has his guitar and he's talking soft, and then and then they know what I'm talking about. And then they bust into the
call my buddy John up here, tickle the strings while I give a Pentecostal close to my message. Yeah.
So
sure.
there's that kind of style, and then there's like the the new Bethel kind of style where it's like massive, like wall of sound kind of sounds. Where do you sit in between that? I know you've talked about a couple artists and a couple guitarists that you really just love. John Mark
McMillan, he had a guitar player. It was actually before I even got into electric guitar, I think I decided to take the plunge into gear. I didn't even know who this guy was. I just heard the guy, his name was James Duke. He was playing on the Medicine album and Economy album when they came out. And I just remember being mesmerized by the sonic tones and landscapes that he was creating. And it wasn't really a corporate worship, either of those corporate worship albums. But I feel like some of those kind of like striking guitar parts kind of set the tone for like our genre. And of course he ended up being a very big contributor.
Would you say that you lean more towards? I just have to say too, you're doing a fantastic job staring straight into the sun. Right?
Oh yeah, thanks, man. Yeah,
Thank you. Would you say that you lean more towards a rhythm style of playing, or do you see yourself as more of like a single note picker, or you know?
Well, wow, that's actually I never really thought about that. I think giving it a little bit of thought just off the top of my head. I mean. A lot of my electric guitar technique and stuff kind of came from dynamics with an acoustic guitar.
Okay.
And I don't know if that sounds cliche or typical for any electric guitar player, but like I know some of the picking styles that I'll do on electric guitar are similar to like what you do with like an acoustic guitar. Mm-hmm. And I guess when it comes to like leads, like I'm not a shredder. Yeah. Right, like I don't, I'm not like, I wish I were a chicken picker and like could do like the crazy Nashville thing, but like, I think at the end of the day, like I'm either playing like pretty, straight up lead parts that are just very simple, and I ultimately think if it adds to the song, I think creativity trumps more notes. Yeah. I mean, just that's subjective, but like, I don't know. I think it's a balance in between. And that's something I've had to be confused about because I know like I'll be scheduled for certain band context or whatever where it's like, all right, Adam, you're taking rhythm, or Adam, you're taking lead, or this person's taking the other one, and it never ends up happening that way, I find. Yeah. But yeah, I think I'm maybe more lead-ish, I'm not to say I can't do rhythm. I think rhythm tones is what I'm figuring out, I think in this part of my playing season. I don't know, so.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you've been recording. How many albums have you
Done the one. I've done the one Represent.
So
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you did all the like lead guitar stuff.
Lead guitar. Yeah, that was a funny process actually.
Where'd you record at?
We recorded at Sunrise Christian Center in Everett. It was funny. Like we were writing the album. I think did one practice before, and a lot of the parts that I
you
played.
Did one practice before, like
basically the guy brought his songs and like. There were parts on that album that I didn't like write or come up with. A lot of it was like spontaneous improv-y stuff. Okay. So like it wasn't like my best, but I also got to learn, kind of what that looks like. And I know we're writing some more stuff that's a lot different and a lot more intentional, at least on my end.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So did you get like a day in the studio? Like I had no clue that I knew that you recorded.
Yeah.
But I had no clue that you didn't like actually like write out like parts.
There were some songs where I'm like, okay, I know I'm doing these parts, but I also had to fill in a lot of blanks.
Okay.
And like I think on the first song, like it's a simple lead that fits the song. Like on the first, not title track, but the number one track is Doxology, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think I realized completely what I was doing until like, all right, I'm stepping on the stage for night one, and then because we did 3 nights of recording and so yeah, it was a lot of that kind of stuff. Yeah. And we also did some overdubs, but we also tried to keep true to like what happened live. Like we didn't change parts or change anything. Yeah. So that was a fun process for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, dude, that's awesome that you've gotten that experience under you. I know. Again, you're doing.
It's okay, man.
It's like,
no, man.
The sun's dying down now, and it's like right there.
It's right in the midst of a sunset.
Like, block it right now.
Right when the interview's over, we'll be behind the shed.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, so you've been recording, playing around with some churches, and just encouraging people to play. I know you also. I just want to touch on. You did a class, like a guided class.
Yeah, I did a workshop at my church, and some people from other churches came. It was the first time I've ever done something like that. Yeah. So I brought a couple of my amps. I set up a stereo situation, and we did a similar setup like with the camera, and I projected onto a screen. And so I basically kind of like talked, like the first part of it was just like, I'm giving my like story behind what I got into music wise, and talked about like context and like, what parts fit for what kind of band context, and like talked about my practice habits a little bit, which is like kind of already an inconsistent thing. Okay. But I also kind of talked about, probably I think what we're going to do later is just how I use my effects and how I use my gear for the style that I play. And then we ended up taking like another, like I think it ended up being like 40-ish minutes of questions. Okay. And so like it was funny. I think it was like an hour and a half or 2 hours. I can't remember. I spoke for the whole thing, and it was crazy. I didn't really know. I've never done something like that before, but it was fun.
Yeah, that's
for
right.
sure. Yeah.
And just to be able to, it's got to feel good to be able to get up there and people trust you enough with your tone.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm anywhere qualified, but at the same time, I do think that like if we're not raising people up to like be the next, people to teach a class like that or to play in these services, then I don't know. Sharing music, with people to receive it is, I think, is good, but also teaching music to people to take on what you're doing. I think a big part of even, like for my church, like leadership is how you transition, and how you transition is how you train somebody to take the next step, and then, you kind of have that, pattern going. So,
well, dude, we still care about tones, and we all like pedals here. So
for sure, I love pedals, man.
Let's
Candy.
take a quick break. Let's get the amps and everything set up, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about his pedals and his guitar and what you're using and how you use it, and then we'll kind of dig into that fun. So give it a sec. Cool. Welcome back. That was fast.
That was
quick. It was really fast.
It took like literally 1 second.
I feel like that.
That took a transitions amount of time to do.
You know what? I might do like the cheesy star fade. Where like.
I like that, I like that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Or the lines
the fading in.
He's actually going to edit this on Microsoft Paint. 95.
Classic. We don't talk about classics that way, okay? Perfect. So let's dive into your pedals, because this is the one thing that we all can get behind and we all love, and obviously we buy and sell them like crazy. This is it's quite the board.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's more than what I need, which is actually kind of why I'm getting rid of some things in this time. But is
that a plug for the sale room?
That is a plug for the sale room. There is a sale room on the Gear Room where you can sell, buy, and trade gear that you are trying to get rid of.
So if you hear any of this,
you might find it on
reach out to Adam.
Yeah.
And say, hey, I know you're not selling that, but I'll give you $9 million for it.
Yeah, for like that tuner, like I'll take $9 million for that, for sure. I'll even sign it for you for $10 more.
Look, I don't want to dive into this, but that's a TU3. Like,
it's true.
You could, if it was a TU2,
they're discontinued, so they probably are worth more.
Cool. So let's talk about Signal Chain.
Yeah. Oh man,
this beautiful guitar.
Yeah. So this is just it's really just a Mexi-made telly, which I love, and I think Mexi like instruments are super underrated. I actually jokingly named it Frankie.
Yeah.
Because it's like I call it my Frankenstein guitar because I wanted to kind of make it like a project-y kind of thing. I upgraded some of the hardware a little bit, just like some different saddles. I put in like an older, new like kind of like pickup. That a friend gave to me, which I thought I didn't like. Here's the thing, real quick, I'll just say this about tellies. A lot of people are like, oh, I need to swap out the pickups in order to like get a better tone that I like. But there's so many other things you can do to your telly that will change the tone drastically. Yeah. Like pickup height, angle, different like coated strings or like gauge versus. I know one thing for me, like I wasn't playing this for a while because it sounded like a wimpy guitar to me, even though I was cranking my amp. But I didn't realize if I had like an input jack that was kind of like shot and stuff. Okay. So I improved like the input jack, right? Higher output, better tone pots, bone nut, tuner. Those things make a difference, right? So all I have to say, Frankie is her name. Frankie.
I like it.
Yeah, it was a gift a long time ago when I first started getting into guitar.
Rad.
So. Yeah.
And do you know when this was made? How old it is?
Sheesh. Yeah. No, I don't know. It's probably like 2000, like 10. Yeah, dude, it's probably said somewhere. I don't know how to read those things. Like, never done the serial number thing. Probably more of a recent. 12. Okay, yeah, that's kind of like when I started picking up electric guitar to begin with.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Oop, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
Cool, so we started the guitar.
Yep.
MIM Fender Telecaster.
Yep.
And I take it we're going straight into the tuner then? Straight
into tuner, yeah. Cool. I used to run it at the end of the chain for specific reasons, but it's fun you get more accuracy, I think, when you're not running it through time-based effects. So
cool.
Yeah.
And then just take us on a journey.
Yeah, so here we go. First one, tuner going into, this is a JHS clone. They were made, I think, like 2011, 2012-ish by Josh Scott. And he actually took it off the market now because Bill Finnegan, the creator of the Klon, was re-releasing the KTR. Yeah. And I know that was, I don't know if that was a conflict or not, but I know they agreed to take that off of their site. So there's only actually a few of these made. It's kind of become like a collector's piece.
Yeah, they're pretty rare. Like you were talking about, like they reached out to Josh and was like, hey, it's like it's too close to the
or something like that. Yeah. I don't know like the finer details, and I'm sure if there is any conflict, we wouldn't really know. But like, yeah, it's supposedly pretty close to the Klon, like scary close. And then going from that into the Voyager, that's like a version 1 too. This is like the Walrus. I love Walrus. I love
Walrus stuff.
They kill it. I think that's even might be like a modified Klon-ish style circuit. It's not a clone, but it is a modified circuit. And I use this kind of like, lately I haven't been using this guy so much. Before I was kind of using it kind of like how you would use a clone, kind of like a cleaner boost buffer situation. But I just find that like I just run my amps on the edge of breakup and I let them kind of do the heavy lifting for the most part so I can have dynamics. Then when I need like a good crunch tone or rhythm-y kind of thing, I'll click on the Voyager for that, and I'll run things differently depending on like how I'm running amps in the room and everything. But like that's that. So ignore this changes from time to time. That I think was for some specific thing I did. Yeah. And then over here, it goes into the I forget the name of the pedal maker actually, but it's the X Pandora. So if you guys have like heard of like the JHS like Kilt, the Stoogie signature overdrive. This is actually what this is based off of. It's kind of a nugget I heard in the gear community. This is actually, I'm borrowing this from a friend, and I think they moved somewhere. Yeah. So I'm not going to sell it or anything. But
don't share this on your Facebook.
Don't share this on my Facebook or my Instagram. No, but like I'm just kind of using this now, and it's kind of like a mid-rangey rat situation. Cool. On the older ones, the switches used to be on the inside, so you have to unscrew the pedal. So this is what I like about the reissue. is that it has like he plays bass, right? Okay. So he has like a vintage 72 like P bass or something, but like he had it on the bass setting, which you can use on guitar too for a lower end kind of situation. B for bass and then G for guitar. And then there's different configurations here to where you can get like a crunch to a rat, which is what I kind of use the 4-bit range, and then all switches down is like fuzz.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of fuzz, if it's like silicone or whatever, but like it's just I don't usually, I use that I think for one song with Represent, for like some kind of like full step bend situation with some chorus, and it sounds really cool, man. Right. But yeah, and then that into volume pedal, volume after drives. And then going from there to the organizer from Earthquaker, octave pedal. Yeah, it's a great pedal. It's kind of in our gear community here, like it's kind of been around to different people within our community, and so like a lot of the gear like this is like from the gear family that we have. That's kind of within our church and everything. And this is another thing that's been sold and bought and pawned once, and then like we bought it from the pawn to keep it in the community. So it's got a little story behind it. It used to belong to my buddy Mitch originally, but I like it. I use it for like like lead stuff. So like if I'm doing like a single note like lead stuff with like say like the X Pandora, the octave is usually this high up, but like it's like about there, and it just adds a little bit of a higher end bite that I like. I rarely do like the very twinkly, like I find that like octaves can be very like old if you use it too much. And if you use it too like flamboyantly, it just sounds corny and cheesy. I might eventually upgrade to a Pog eventually. I don't know, because I realize I keep trying to make this sound like a Pog. So if I realize if I'm trying to make a pedal sound like another pedal,
and the tracking on the Pog is a little bit better, right?
I think so. Yeah, I haven't done enough research on that, honestly. I love the big Pogs too, like the big box ones, because like they just sound really good, and I know there's like presets or whatever, but like not a lot of space going on at the moment. But Organizer's great. It's Earthquaker. They're just amazing. And going from this guy, I'm going into the deluxe Memory Boy. And I was saying earlier, one of my inspirations getting into like electric guitar for the first time was a guy named James Duke, who played with John Mark McMillan. And some of his flashy like shoegazy like guitar sounds came from like a vintage Memory Man. And of course the Memory Boy is kind of like similar. It's a analog delay with digital processing, of course, and it's just like a it's a little darker than the Memory Man. So I kind of do more spaceshipy like sounds with it. Like I'll do a thing where like the feedback goes up and into like a like a chorus or something, depending on the church you're playing at. And Represent, there's some stuff in there with that, it's fun because we just we do weird stuff and it's fun. Into that we're going to TC Electronics Nova delay.
I love the Nova. I know we were talking about this just earlier today.
Right, like,
you can get so many different sounds and dial it in. So
the thing about TC, I feel like the two pedal companies that get a bad rap are Boss and TC. And it's just kind of like, no, they're like great pedals, like for real. And I haven't really dove into the preset thing, which I'm trying to do with BPMs, because like we'll set BPMs for like songs with like my band and stuff, and like that for set list. But
you're sending this down to John E.
John E. Docs of Sound. Yeah, he's gonna give me a mod. Or do a mod for me that and I'm sending it to him at some point this year.
Who's a part of the gear room and the sale room.
The guy's legit. He's a great guy.
Built some awesome pedals down in California.
Yeah, does a lot of good custom work. Yeah, and what I've asked him to do this. If I get around to sending this, it's gonna be a preset button here, so I can scroll through presets, so I don't have to do the weird double tap thing. And then he does like a tap tempo out, because this is my biggest issue with this pedal setup right now, is that my volume is here, and when I'm trying to tap, I hit the volume. And
you got those big feet.
I got big feet. Yeah, I'm a size 12 shoe, and I wear boots all the time. I'm not a sneaker guy, so obviously it's like dropping a something on my board. So yeah, I usually will run like quarter notes most of the time, and if I kind of tap dot sometimes, and if I sometimes I'll switch down.
And it looks like you're running eighth notes on
the Memory Boy. And like I said with the Memory Boy too, the reason why it's just kind of happens to be on there because I was practicing like a John Mark song or something like that. But like I'll use this also for like swells. So that's hence kind of the feedback's kind of up, and it just creates this big wall. I don't like wimpy swells. I like 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 you're being blasted with a wave. Definitely. And I hate whale noises. Just gonna throw that out there. I love swells, but I hate whale noises. I used to be big into that. Yeah.
I'm gonna just do whale noises.
Well, here's the thing with worship, all these guitar players like, and it's just like really distracting and annoying. I'm like, you're just like annoying. So, but yeah, I run this as kind of like the digitally kind of situation. Cool. I have this kind of just off analog going into the digital side. Okay. No mod. And then so I just kind of play with the feedback and the mix depending on what I need. It goes from that into the flashback. I'm thinking about getting rid of this as well. That's kind of been like my bread and butter, #secret sauce.
Yeah. Pedal. A lot of guys in churches are playing the TC flashback stuff, like the X4 and the Alter.
They're great pedals, dude. They're incredible. And what's really cool about this is it's a tone print thing, to where you have the app and you put the pickup to your phone.
Do you use that quite a bit?
No, I haven't. Because I always have it set on the tone print setting, because the stock like tone print that came with the pedal is like,
you dig?
I dig it, man. Okay. It's got a kind of like a weird washy, like memory man-y kind of like warble tone. And so what I was doing, I'm not using it too much these days, I set effects back and feedback up, and have it set on quarter and dotted eighths. Kind of creates more of like a pad, reverby kind of thing. But I also realize like I'm creating a lot of mud, and I think it's sometimes guitar players in worship play very like washed out wet stuff, and that's cool depending on what you're doing. And I think I'm at this point in my playing where I'm like, I don't just want to sound cool, but I want to sound good. So like what's complement and what's cutting through and what's resting in the mix well, and I think this kind of muddies things up a little bit for the way that I'm using it. But so I just don't think I have a need for it now, so that might go on that gear room sale room.
So yeah, if you dig the flashback, watch out for that.
Flashbacks are great though. It's been I've had it. It's like my first delay pedal, I think, actually. I've had it for 5 years.
And it does have the hold it down, you get the tap tempo and all.
Yeah, you hold it down and it kind of does this strumming pattern thing. Which there's practical ways to use that for sure. Some people are like, that's not practical, but you can do that. So that's that. That goes into the Nunabar wet reverb. I'm not using... Dude, bow down in reverence and wait until you hear how I use it. It's gonna piss you off.
All right, perfect. Good.
Because I'm actually gonna take that off the board, but I'm gonna keep it because I'm using it for something else.
Oh, okay. All right. I was like, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Hold on. So the wet reverb, I'm using the mono, not the stereo. Okay. I think the stereo has like the tone knob for like shimmery stuff. I run this kind of like depending on what I'm doing. So this is mostly kind of like a dry like room reverb. It's like okay. That's why I said piss you off, because it does ambient well, but I mostly do in-ears. A lot of people do the wedge thing, but like I just find these days more I'm doing in-ears, and I need something to pop.
Well, it's just cleaner on stage and all that too.
Right, exactly, and it just adds a little bit of pop to my tone that it's really just for my ears than it is for anything else out there. Cool. I know it's kind of weird, but like that's just how I use it. But what I found out about this is that I will take it off the board sometimes, and I'll use it when I lead worship for acoustic. Yep. And I'll set the mix knob here where that little thing is. And this is a tip I learned from my roommate, Drew Montoya. He's the associate pastor and one of the worship guys at Clearview Foursquare. But he'll run it like this. And it's really crazy. Like I'll be playing acoustic and it's articulate and it sounds like an acoustic guitar. Nothing's muddy or super washy. Full. But then you stop playing it and you hear like a pad. So there'll be times like that Pentecostal moment we're talking about. You'll be playing in the background, right? And you almost hear like an ambient pad string situation underneath what you're playing. And I've had like literally kids that don't even play guitar at all. They're like, "What was that sound behind your guitar?" It sounded like you had a keys player. And so like it was actually kind of a cool thing that my roommate help me discover. So I might replace like a vintage like Holy Grail or something, because I'm using it as like a springy kind of thing. So or I might just use my amp reverb. I don't know.
I mean, you're playing Fenders.
I'm playing Fenders. Yeah. Well, one Fender, one Vox, but like the Fender verbs are great. Yeah. And I've really come to love Spring. I used to not like it because I thought Spring's great. I love Spring. And then RV6. I bought that because my RV5 broke, which I sent to Doxa, just to have. And I think he used it for a bit and fixed it and was playing it.
Probably sold it, made a little
probably
money
sold it and upgraded, probably, wink wink. Because that's probably what he did, because I was messaging him today. The RV6 is great. I run it kind of on like a plate setting a lot of the time, just for, and this is like my over the top, like, so it goes into swells, or if I'm doing like, there's like I think a song that I play or a couple things where I just hit, one note that rings for like 4 like measures or whatever, and then likewise, that just kind of fills out a lot of sound and ambience, and it's just really cool. I hate shimmer reverb.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of people love it, and people
Yeah.
do use it tastefully, and I think it's cool. I just like the plate, and then also, of course, the RV5's famous for like the modulate, and I think the RV6 it gets it pretty right where I like that and modulate thing. It's really kind of a cool sound. So yeah, that's my board.
Cool.
Oh,
And
one
then
last thing, bright switch, so you can charge your phone.
Yeah.
And you have a LED
this is cool.
light. Yeah. Which is cool because like if you need like a set list, I played a lot of Dark Stages, and it seems like kind of a dumb novelty, but it's really not. It's made by Rockstock, and they it's just a really kind of cool invention. Like you can charge your phone, like and you can see your set list, and I play on stage where blackout. I need to see like a delay setting so I can do some weird like transition. Then boom, it's right there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then usually you're going into a Fender Blues Junior.
Yeah, it's a tweed. I think it's actually
tweed
like a
version.
95 or it was like one of
Okay.
the first
Cool. Which are fantastic amps. I love those.
They're
and then
amazing,
You're playing
yeah.
into an AC50 when you play stereo, or AC15
Right,
when
yeah.
you're playing stereo.
Right. Yeah,
Cool.
and I run them both kind of like on the
Right.
edge of a breakup for dynamics and stuff, and if I'm able to do that.
Today he's playing one of my amps. It's a 1961 Martin amp.
Cool
It's a
amp.
Martin 112. I did take the Jensen out and I put a 90 watt Mesa speaker in there with a large cone, so it kind of takes down some of that high. It's basically late 50s deluxe kind of take
it's
from
really
D'Armond with a
Yeah.
upgrades. Yeah, very pretty amp, but set very clean. So a little bit
Different
different
tone than what I normally work with, but yeah, it's
yeah,
really
I
cool.
figure we just dive in and check out some of these pedals. You've got some cool ones that a lot of people haven't heard of or seen before. Maybe this is the first time I've ever seen Ex Pandora, and I know of it.
They're just becoming known recently, but they're really cool.
Cool. Well, let's dive in some tones. Let's start off with how you use your drives.
See, so like you were saying earlier, this is like a different amp setup and way that we run it, but that's okay. That's kind of not reverb off. So this is kind of like my clean. That's my clean tone. And so I like to allow for dynamics and stuff. So then I'll just tell you how I do it these days. So I'm not using this guy that much, the Klon, and recent services and bands or whatever. But like this one, I'll have dynamics with the amp, and then the Voyager will go on, and that'll be kind of like a rhythm tone crunch, kind of like little grittier thing. So. The tone set up a little bit, so it just kind of makes a little bit more of like a, bitier.
And I like how
sound.
it's just giving it a little bit.
It's
not
just a
like
bit,
heavy.
yeah, exactly. And here's the thing too. This is my philosophy. This is a big like. I think I don't know if other guitar players think this way, but I've seen it in the worship community is that people will have like a $3,000 like boutique matchless like half stack, and they'll be like, yeah, I have my matchless, but like my tone comes from like this $200 overdrive.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of like with overdrives, you're just adding a little bit. You don't need like let your distortion take the distortion when it needs to have distortion.
Yeah.
And that's where I start having this change of thought. Like you don't need to sound cool, you just need to sound good, and good and cool follow, right? So like. Yeah, that's the Voyager, and then I don't usually stack very often. Sometimes I will these two.
Okay.
But like if I were using like the Klon, I would turn that off to go like to the other one. I used to stack a lot, and then started getting messy, and then things started getting kind of like confusing tonally. So I just like stick with one drive doing what it's meant to do for the amp that I'm running.
Gotcha.
So but sometimes I will stack these two in recent times. The Ex Pandora is really cool. Let me just let you hear it by itself.
Yeah.
I have a set kind of like on a mid-rangey kind of rat setting. So I'll usually look for like single notes. So with this coming over here, I'll like turn on my verb like a quarter note delay. I usually use it so it's not like you don't hear like the delay, but it just kind of adds to what's going on. And then I'll have like the octave pedal, and then I'll have this going with this. So this is like a song that we do. It's a lead line, so it's. with the Expandora.
Yeah.
So even by itself, it's a. So I use that for mainly like solo-ish, like leads like that.
Sounds great though.
Thanks, man. Wow, yeah. And I couple that a little bit with the organizer, and I just have kind of like the octave down all the way down, choir all the way down, lag all the way down, tone at noon.
Yeah, you're literally just playing like
just a little octave up.
Yeah.
And I don't do so much where it's like, the twinkly, like, cheesy, hokey thing, but I just added that, high end and bite.
You just talked about this like like it was you were using it as a rat, and I was expecting a little more like harshness, like a little more like top end, like bite and cut through.
Yeah.
And it's actually there's a nice presence, but it's still easy on the ears, like
for sure. And here's the thing too, I was thinking about, and I had this conversation with one of our buddies. His name is Ryan Danley, who's a producer and guitar player with Represent, and played in some bands, kind of like I think, and the scene that some of the alternative scene. And he was telling me about like even this lady who I forget her name used to be the producer for like these big like metal bands like Metallica and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, and people would come in, these guitar players, and they'd set up their rigs, and it would be like a mess, right, with all like this distortion, and like I said, it sounds cool, maybe live or all this stuff, but when you're actually thinking in terms of like what sounds good with the band and what sounds actually good, she would actually have to run amps cleaner and do kind of the stereo thing, so that like when they would play in the studio, it would actually have to come down to more of a cleaner state. Yeah. So like people like the nasty loudness, which I think it sounds cool depending on the context, but also like if I were to compare like if I were to go from crazy to this, I'd be like, oh, that sounds wimpy. Yeah. But like if you just hear just the way this is running, like it's like, oh yeah, like. But that's gonna sound good with everything else going on, and it's not gonna be like this nasty like hodgepodge of distortion. Yeah. But yeah. So that's that. And I'll run those together sometimes. And then again too, like I'll mess with like levels, and not levels unless I really need a boost, but like even gain, and mess with that and tone. So that's that, and that's how I do my drive section. Yeah. And then of course you saw how I kind of use the organizer. Yeah. Sometimes I'll do some of the twinkly things with it. If I'm doing like if it's like a really ambient and it calls, it's rare that I do.
Are you stacking delays then?
For swells.
Okay.
Yes, for swells. So like coming into, for instance, the Memory Man or Memory Boy, I kind of like I love swells. So I will stack. So here's that stacked with this and this, and that's just all my wet on right now, honestly. So like I love big in your face, right? So I'll even kick on a turn the volume all the way. Like a lot of noise, but like I don't like wail, but I like full like swells that's kind of giving you a hug, not like jabbing you with a razor blade kind of thing.
Sorry, I'm just checking to make sure that the phone's still recording, all that good stuff.
Oh yeah, that's good. Like all battery didn't die, and we weren't recording for the last 80 minutes with like nothing going. So, but anyways, like that's how I use this guy mainly, and then also of course like oscillations. Probably turn it on, that would help, right? Of course, maybe a little more seasoned in a band context than that, but that's kind of like what I'll do, something with that. And then this guy, like you even heard how I used like the quarter note. Like I don't use it, so it's like a. That was kind of a cool thing I think for worship in like the early 2000s and stuff, But I think we've kind of taken a different turn with things like Bethel and like kind of taking over the scene, and now it's just I kind of use like quarter notes. It's kind of like a kind of like a rhythmic kind of thing. So it just kind of adds just that level of like, just, thickness, I guess. So that's how I'm running that. And then like I said, this guy just kind of does like the washy weird thing. This is kind of like what I was using it for. It has that warbly kind of tone, but I realized here's the thing: when I'm playing,
sits under the sound for sure. It's
for sure. And this is why I use this for many years. I used to play in a lot of band contexts where it's like 4-piece, like acoustic guitar, drums, bass, and electric guitar.
Yeah.
And so like when you have that, it can get very dry, especially in a worship setting where you have quiet moments and ministry moments, and someone comes up to say something. So you kind of need to like have almost a pad behind you. But I've also lately been playing with a lot more complex bands, so where like that just adds to the noise and it just sounds muddy. You know, I don't know, and I realized I could accomplish that kind of with any delay if I want. So, for years, like it's been like one of my, you know, secret sauce ingredients for like some of the stuff I did. But yeah, and then like I said, this guy just kind of like a dry, and then I usually just go ahead and stack. I don't, you know, this is already pretty dry because I'm already doing
because you're running that all the time then, yeah? Is that your...
This is on almost all the time, and like I said, I might even just go to like amp verb if I really need to, but this is like, you know... thing with that, so it just adds, you know, that, not shimmer, but it just adds like a, you know, a washiness. That sounds cool. So yeah, that's just kind of how I use things. Swells, of course, are really big, I think, with the worship thing, and but I also realize, like I said, I'm not like a shredder. I mean, I can play complex parts, but you know, I think with worship, I think really, like I said kind of earlier too, is this what's adding to the song. And I think if you are a shredder too, it's this, I think it's a good challenge to think, like if you're not a shredder like me, I'm kind of in a place, all right, how can I get better at my craft, better at my skills, better at my theory, and develop, you know, skills is, you know, knowing places on the neck to play. And I think if you're already like a crazy shredder, a good place to start thinking is like, okay, how do I simplify this to make it sound good for the song and the context, and how do I support, you know, the people who are writing the song and singing the song.
Well, I just want to step out of the picture for a second and maybe just like let you play around with your pedals for like 5 minutes. And then just like come up with some tones, play maybe something that you normally would play, a little lead line or a little rhythm line that you accent, and just let the people hear a little bit of the pedals and your sound. Since that's what we're talking about is your voice. Cool. Let's enjoy that.
Let's do. It's always like when I like ask to play, it's like I don't know. So it's usually like when I'm like by myself, and it's just like, you know. So can you leave? No, I'm just joking. It's a joke. It's a joke. Let's just actually get muddy for a sec. I'm thinking let's just do that.
Awesome, guys. Well, thanks so much for joining us again, and thank you, Adam, for,
thanks for having
coming
me, man.
over and showing us
Dude, it was fun.
your rig and talking with us just about your inspirations in music.
Thanks for having me.
This is our second one, and I'm glad that we got to finally meet up. So thanks again, man.
Thank you.
Love you, dude.
Love you, man.
Tune in again. We'll definitely be doing more of these in the future. I hope you like this. If you did, give it a share, give it a like. Comment below if you saw a pedal you want, and buy it off of Adam.
Depending if I'll sell it.
He'll sell it.
I'll sell it for the right price.
Cool. This has been the Gear Room Interviews with Adam Truitt.
Word.